Episode 2 of Bookish Amigas. We're going to be reviewing The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. And I absolutely forgot to get some questions together. So I'm going to leave it to these other two ladies to go over this book, but we're going to try and be as honest about how we felt about this book because there was some heavy themes that we went over, and the book does have a lot of themes that aren't suitable for like much younger crowd, and it's a bit of historical fiction. So we'll start with Rosina.
Of course, I have my questions right here.
Of course.
With the one that Ken and I felt was very well played throughout the book is how their actions within fear and their bravery is kind of played out with Robbie and Gloria, and it kind of like um, increases how they've grown up, and with the ultimate culmination of them finally meeting up with their dad. How do you think that kind of interacts with the themes in the book?
There's a lot of fear throughout the book for various reasons, right? Um, Starting with historically where they are in the times. Um, their dad leaving, their mother passing away, they're being taken care of by like an elderly lady, and then they end up moving back into their old home. But this is, during a time where it was not. I mean, not that it's better now, I guess, but not, compared to the times. You're not safe for these two kids down there by themselves, especially considering, so there's a fear of what will happen to you as a person of color
Mhm.
in the South during this time. There's the fear of uh, when Robert Jr. ends up going to the reformatory, which is like a portrayed as like a reform school, right? Juvenile center, and what's going to happen to him while he's there. Is he really going to be there for 6 months because he gets sentenced for 6 months? Um, it's the fear for him, but the fear of what's going to happen to his sister, because what leads to him being in that place in that school, um, is like him protecting his sister from this white boy that's like hitting on her, and I feel like he has to protect her because she's not going to do anything. She can't do anything because she's older, understanding the climate. The fear of the ghost in the reformatory itself. And then when they finally decide to break out and try to get to dad, who's up north, um, like, are they gonna make it up there? Are they gonna get stopped? Like, what's gonna happen? Um, I mentioned that he's their children, right? Like Gloria, I feel like she was like a teenager, maybe like the later midish teens, but he's younger.
Yeah,
And
I think he was like he had to be like 12-ish. It he
yeah,
That's the vibe that he kind of gave off.
I'm sure they said it in the book, and I don't
Yeah.
remember. But
And it's also
it's
during the
a heavy book.
1950s in the South.
Yeah,
So it's a lot of segregation is still a huge thing in this town. And, the white people that are part of this town are definitely they hold the power. So anything that is said from, said against, well, let's start off that Robbie has a bit of a vendetta against him simply because of what happened to his dad. That his dad was accused of doing something horrendous that you come to find out throughout the book that isn't true, but there's already the consensus that obviously the dad is bad, so the son should also take the punishment because the dad is no longer around.
yeah, because of that leaves. And some of the fears, like because you mentioned 1950s things that like adults would not do, right? Like he kicks the son. I think he kicked him, right? The son of like the wealthy or the prominent white landowner in the area, and obviously gets into his punishment. The punishment does not meet the crime, but not shocking. Um, but he's also be like something like that. Like I feel like an adult wouldn't have done, like because they knew what would happen. right? Like it's like even if you did like even if you just like looked wrong, like you were gonna get like his dad got accused of something that he did not do because they were just trying to bring him down. I think that like because he's a kid, like a lot of the things they don't realize, like there's still that innocence. So the things that we're reading and we're like, oh my god, like it's gonna be terrible. This is gonna be terrible. Like when you're reading it through the kid's eyes, like they're not seeing it yet. It's like they even if they know what's going on and they've been warned about things down there. One, children in general don't have the same fear that adults do,
Mhm.
and they might and kids also tend to like not listen to adults, right? Like when we tell them to do things like, oh, don't do this, you're gonna get hurt, and they're like, fine, and they get hurt, they're like, oh, like, you know. So his fear, like even his fear of the ghosts, like the adults are afraid of these ghosts, and he's just like, oh, my buddy's not actually alive that I've been talking to this whole time. He's
Yeah.
dead. Like, okay.
And his fear was only coming out with that and like just how they look and what they were like projecting, like the ugliness that happened to them while they were
Yeah,
at the reformatory kind of was being conveyed through what they look like. And except for Blue, it's
I
the
think that
worst.
also like they're they have a lot of bravery in what they do. Like his sister is still very much like trying like to get her brother out of there, thinking that justice will prevail. Like, no, somebody will help, somebody will interfere, and she continues to put herself in a position to try to help her brother,
Hmm.
which is very brave of her. And when they finally get out of there, like I said, what they do to get up north, like vacation. What they do to get out of there and get up north, like that took a lot, especially knowing, especially for him being at the reformatory, hearing what's happened to some of the other kids that have been there and that have tried to run away or have had like a small infraction and their time extended. For him to still try to escape, put his hand basically in the life of or the death of because the person that helps him is a ghost
Yeah.
and they're not alive. But like he puts his life in their hands to help get him out of there. He puts his life in the hands of like some adults that aren't even physically there to see him and get him out of there. The people that cut the fence and um. So the kids are very brave, um, which is I think is part of because they're kids but also because like throughout the book and the time that he's there, they do start to grow up because they really start to see like, oh no, this is not like unless we take matters into our own hands, we're not. This is not going to work out. This is not. This is going to turn out uglier than the way it did. The way it did was obviously the way it ended was nice, or than the way it could have been, and that it had been for other kids that had been in this place.
Yeah, Robbie's loss of innocence from being in there and trying to be just a brave boy protecting his big sister to arriving in this juvenile facility where children are being beaten and worse, and then having himself exposed to the first time. His first experience upon arriving in this place is trauma, and
Yeah.
it just compounds throughout the entire time. So he's dealing with a lot. He's dealing with the fear of a brand new place, about what could possibly happen to him, and then being around all the other boys, being around the bullies of the yard and having things like that happen. um and then having uh, a good friend not even be a corporeal, like a living being, but to being a corporeal being that winds up helping him to release the spirits of all those of all the other children and adults that were imprisoned there. So it's it's a lot of things that happen. It's a lot of, oh my goodness, just experience upon experience where any day could have just been a loss of life. It could have been something, and for to have a child as young as 12 to have to deal with that, um, just kind of puts you in the perspective of when you're reading this book, because this is a historical fiction telling. But in the meantime, she did a lot of research on the actual historical events that would have that, how do you say that, inspired
What
her to write this
happened?
book, because I
Yeah.
believe it was her uncle, her grandmother's brother or her grandmother's uncle, something to that effect, that was actually in uh, one of
One of
these
those
facilities,
places.
and
One
he
of those.
didn't make it home.
Oh, yeah. And he had this. She used his name So I really appreciated that she did so much research.
Mhm.
I think if I remember when we heard her talk at Bookcon, like she mentioned like how long it took her to write the book, to really like speaking to the families of other kids that had been there. Um, I don't think there was ever any we found anything in terms of there being ghosts at like this place, but just working that in, which made sense considering all the things that had happened there. And it was helpful to all the historical figures that she mentions in the book,
Mhm.
Yep.
because it really puts it into perspective what was going on, right? Like it really like this is what was happening at the time there. This is why things were so difficult. Like for Gloria to get justice for her brother, like she didn't sugarcoat anything.
Or even just to see him. Like that it
Yeah,
was just so
even just
awful, and just that every day of every point of these people living during this time period, it was a hard ass time, no matter what just walking down the street. Um and it's it really puts you into that um realm where it's like, oh my god, like this is not, no one can live like this. um and the reformatory was just a gut punch, because now, like, oh, it's all these kids who shouldn't be in any of the positions that they were, um to be treated this way. And yeah, it was there was a lot of emotions going through, like, reading this book, and there were moments where I had to kind of put it down, go through like my own thought process of like how destructive um it was during this time period. And we still have a lot of work to do, of course, but it's very an intense anger, um, that this has can be real.
Yeah, it was
that
real.
was real.
It
Yeah.
was real.
I think that there are
And
actually some schools that had only recently closed that were still implementing the same thing. Like what now? Right now, we still have institutional slavery. We still have children that are working, or not children, adults that are working in prisons. We have firefighters in California that aren't getting really paid. But then on top of that, those skills don't transfer when they get released from prison, and um, there's a couple of prisons down in the South where they make them clean highways, and they make them farm and pick cotton and do all sorts of stuff for industry. Um, it's it's the United States is an interesting place, and the
yeah,
fact that it's been allowed and been used as a like recovery program for some of these inmates is, in my opinion, it's I just keep saying that word. Um, It's pretty terrible. It's pretty terrible on what
yeah.
we do. All right, so I enjoyed the book. I'm gonna rate this book probably a 4.75, just because I wanted a happier ending outcome. Not just for the the ending was very good and very well written. I would have preferred just a happier outcome for the rest of the kids, or maybe just more story on that. So 4.75 for me.
I think
I'm a
I
5. Let me interject. For me, it was a 5, but it's more because the story, it was such a complete story to me, and it gave you food for thought, and good, generous conversations, and looking up questions, and even looking up like what actually really did happen. So to me, that is what a story and a book should be doing.
I had originally given it a 5. Um, and then I brought it down to a 4.75, bordering on a 4.6, just because I'm upset. Like in further reflection, upset just as the fact that the father left the kids. Like we know why he left. Like he's being accused of a crime, a heinous crime that he did not commit, and I can see why he fled. But like also, your children are still there. They're gonna come for your kids, right? Like he tells his daughter, like, figure it out. He's
Yeah,
also still a child, you know what I mean? And then like his big like great. They're happy to see him because he happens to be at the train station when they get up there. Somebody must have told them like, hey, the kids are coming. But like, you didn't do anything else, like other than to give the kids a place to run to, like basically.
Yeah.
So I 4.7.
All right. So until next time. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everyone.